So the second speaker is Mohanapriya Raman. The topic is on conscious lifestyle lessons from the tribes of the Nilgiris. So the Nilgiris is a town in Tamil Nadu in south of India. Mohanapriya hails from an ethical community from the hills of the Nilgiris, a serene landscape in Tamil Nadu known for biodiversity. From young, she is an ardent lover of nature and a community volunteer, an avid reader and a constant learner who thrives to self-improve the quality of life and life each and every moment. A jovial, energetic homemaker who loves to live in a kinship environment. She practices culinary medicine in her day-to-day life, practices yoga, exercises, and dances to the subtler sounds of life. She has a devoted passion towards Tamil literature, but she holds a degree in computers from the Anna University, and she is a gold medalist. A mother of two children, she is passionate about conscious parenting in nurturing young, healthy young minds. Siddha-Vetha conferred her a title Conscious Global Citizen after she took the Transdisciplinary Science and Technology course, and for her contribution in preserving the green planet. So I welcome Mohanapriya.
Hello everyone. So let's see how the tribes of Nilgiris led conscious lifestyle and what do we learn from them. The Nilgiris comprises of more than 10 tribes. It is a treasure of tradition and culture, and their cultures, they still remain intact this day. So though there are a lot of changes that happen from the ancient day to today, but a lot of traditions are still followed as per the nature's law. Out of all the tribes, the Kota, Kurumba, Badaga, Irula, Toda, Panya, these tribes are some major tribes, whereas the others are very minimal in number. And among these tribes, the Badagas are the predominant tribes in the hills, and I'm proud that I'm one of the Badaga tribe. Some facts about Nilgiris is that Nilgiris falls in the Western Ghats of the India. Western Ghats it's considered as older than the Himalayas several years ago, and even the UNESCO has recognized the Western Ghats as the world's 8th hotspot known for its biodiverse nature. So as if there are more than 10 tribes in the Nilgiris, how Badagas are living a conscious life. So Badagas have a strict cultural framework and they stick to it even today. And as per their law, not following the cultural tradition is a sin. So this wisdom didn't come overnight or just like that. It had acquired over generations and generations through close observation of the nature and through experimentations. Their tradition, customs, rites, rituals, it all indicate that Badagas lived in a social and economic symbiosis. So they, every little ritual, every little thing that they followed, they made sure that they don't affect the nature in any way. Most of the traditions are the festivals, marriage, and child and funeral practices. And we'll see one by one what do they indicate, what do they teach us from their traditions. Spirituality is a birthright of Badaga. So Badagas are very connected to their spiritual worship, and they do not follow idol worship. They don't have any idol. It's a no idol worship. Idols now they do worship idols, but all these came in the modern trend, modern days. Initially, in the ancient, they did not worship any idol. Instead, they worship their ancestors. So their ancestors are their forefathers, their great-grandfathers of their own family or of the whole community. And they also worship the nature. They are still worshiping the nature. Tree, stone, sun, fire, water, and animals like snake and cow, they are still, worship these natural elements. And for every function or every ceremony or every ritual has this nature's element has a significant role in every tradition. And let's see about how they worship, the ancestors worship. So the picture on the right is called Madil. We call it as Madilu. You can see the arch, the architecture is in the form of arch, and you can see a lamp. That is a copper lamp. So Bargas, they used stone lamps, the earthen pot lamps, and the copper lamp. They did not have candles and all those stuffs. So this copper lamp alone is their god, and you can see no other photos or no other idols, anything besides this. And this Madilu has a significant importance in their intellectual architecture. You can see the Madil in the form of an arch. The reason that they had kept the Madil in form of an arch is that even in the ancient days, they had realized that an arch is a strong geometrical figure that can bear any heavy load. And that's why they realized, and they had formed the arch. And why does this arch have to bear heavy loads is that right above the arch in the first floor, they have the attic. And in that attic, they store all the equipments that they needed for the agriculture and the farming, and the grains and food produce that had they cultivated and harvested are stored in the attic. So this is really an admirable thing our ancestors did, that without having any technology or any science or any studies or research, they had got the knowledge that to build such an architecture to which will hold the loads in the attic, and that would also support the whole house. And another significant thing of this arch is that this arch is the meeting place of the inner room that we called as the Ogamane, so where all the holy things are kept, and it is adjacent to the living room where the people it's the living room, and it's also adjacent to the kitchen. So in olden days, where we don't have electricity and all those stuff, they use the lamp that is lit on this madil, such that the light is transmitted to all the rooms, so that they didn't have to use fire in every places. So they use the fire, that is the lamp, in one place, and so that the whole house would be benefited out of that. And the reason they use the minimization of fire is that we'll see in the upcoming slides. One of the major festival of theirs is the Dodda Habba. Habba means festival, Dodda means big. It is the big festival. This is the first festival of the year. And this festival starts where their ancestors of the village or the family live. So their ancestors is that if you take a Barga village or a Barga hamlet, their ancestors would be brothers of the same blood, of the same parent. Their great-great-grandfathers all would be the siblings, and they would have lived in one house, and that house is still being considered as a sacred house, and it is considered as a temple by the other villagers till date. So the festival starts at that house, and so first they cook the food in the house, in the ancestor's house, and that food is first served to a cow or a bull in a bronze plate. So because next to ancestor, the next god is the cow for us, the Gomada. So there is the cow mother. So they first feed their mother, the cow, and then people would eat the thing. And this festival is so at the end of all the rituals, people would harvest the fresh produce that they had planted in their farms, the vegetables and fruits, and then they start cultivating the millet crops. So millets are they are the basic food of the Baragas. They did not know rice, they did not know wheat. All these that came in these modern days. Their only food was the millet crops. So in this way, they had learned crop cultivation in their ancient times. They had also learned that crop crop rotation will help in soil enrichment. So this purpose of their festival is not just to serve the millet crops, but it is also to serve the fulfillment, encouragement, and happiness. And the next festival is the Sakalati festival. The Sakalati festival is a really interesting festival. So this festival is calling our forefathers and celebrating their arrival. So it is like we are summoning, we are calling those spirits, we feed the spirits, we get their blessings, and we will be happy that our ancestors are very delighted to see us celebrating them. So it's very interesting. On this day of Sakalati, they do something called as Kapu. Kapu means protection. They use 5 types of medicinal herbs. So I had mentioned the names of the herbs. They are Kodanga, Kilije, Utrane, Ombiri, and Tumbe. So these are the names in Badga. I don't know their names in English, but I can try to find them, and sir would let you all know. So these medicinal herbs are tied together in the courtyard of the house. So every herb has medicinal benefit. And then the drawings, they do some drawings in the outside in the patio area. So those drawings are used with the ashes of the firewood stove. So Bargas cook their food on a firewood stove. They would get the firewood from the woods, and those ashes are used to draw the drawings, and the drawings are really interesting. What all the elements that they draw are the sun, crescent, moon, the plow, because Bargas are basically, they are agriculturists, so plowing is one main thing for them. And bull, so bull is already a part of our family, so bull is also been worshipped on that day. And tip of the plow, that is used to dig the soil. And stick, the stick is that the wooden log that we use to leash the cow or the calf in it. And sickle, so why sickle is important is that any harvesting is done using a sickle. And umbrella, umbrella is also an important thing in Bargas thing. If you see the Madilu, this Madilu itself is in form of an umbrella, and any god or even a newborn baby, when the baby is carried from one place to another, they hold an umbrella to carry the baby, to take the baby. And ladder, so why ladder is that attic is the place, is a granary, is the storage place for the food, where food is an important one of the worship thing in Bargas. And the equipments that they use, the tools they use for the agriculture are also kept in the attic, and that attic can be accessed only using a ladder. So ladder is really an important thing in Bargas, among Bargas. So all these indicates that the ancestors wanted us to protect the agriculture, the cattle, and they had given the code of life, how life should be. So every generations of generations, these rituals are followed, educating the young minds that what our ancestors had lived, how they had lived, and how we have to preserve our nature and our environment. So on this day, they would collect, one person would collect food from all the houses in a basket or in a copper plate, and they go to one particular place in the wood. They would drop all the food in there, and they would come back without returning. So in the belief that their ancestors would come and they would, obviously they won't eat the food, but it is like offering the food to the ancestor before they eat or before they celebrate. So these are the few pictures of the Sakalati function festival. So on the top right, top left, you can see men drawing the pictures of the sun and other natural elements on the ground. The second and third are the person collecting food from every house, so that food is offered to our ancestors. And the bottom 2 pictures are the medicinal herbs that are used to do the protection, to put up that protection kapu. So on the right bottom, you can see a lot of herbs have been kept. So that is that the villages of the village people would volunteer, and they would find all these herbs from the woods and everywhere, and keep it in one place, so that all the villagers would gather from there, would get from there. So this says how sharing, how they loved for each other, and how sharing our ancestors had been. And the next is the Eteba. Eteba is, Hete means grandmother. So as I already said, we don't have any idol worship. So all our worship are the ancestors, and our ancestors are, of course, our grandmothers and grandfathers. So Hete literally means grandmother. Eteyama are the ancestors who lived a pure life in the path of Dharma. So this whole community celebrates Ete as a festival in the month of Margari on the first Monday after the full moon day. This is considered as the last festival of the year because of the significance of the Margari month that I'll tell later. So on this day of Etebam, thousands of people get dressed in white and they gather in a place where the deity is in form of stone. So what do we mean the deity is in form of stone is that our Hetes, they are considered to be sisters, like they are 7 sisters. So our Hetes had attained the Jiva Samadhi, and while so as they had attained the Jiva Samadhi and they had surrendered themselves to the God, and at that place where they had attained the Jiva Samadhi, people had kept a stone in remembrance of that, and that stone is worshipped as our Hete God till date. So any festival, especially the Hete Abba, Hete festival, would start worshipping from that stone, and then it goes, and then everybody goes to their respective homes and they do the festival. So why white? White is color of Bargas, I would say. So white colored dress or white dhoti or white mundu, what we say, plays very important role in every festival and also in the day-to-day life. Their traditional attire itself is in white. White attracts positive spiritual energy. White is also another sign for peacefulness. White seems to expand one's aura, so it makes one's presence stronger and it also radiates the outer energy. And what is the significance of Margari month is that in the month of Margari, the sun's gravity is the highest on the earth. That means there is always a downward pull on the earth. So the life is kind of preserved. The nature of life is preserved. That means nothing grows or nothing goes against the nature, against the gravity. So any crop that they plant in that month of Margari, it doesn't really grow as they do in the rest of the year or in their particular period. And that's the reason we Baragas, we don't conduct any functions, any auspicious functions or family function like puberty ceremonies or the marriages in the month of Margari, because our ancestors had realized that a life would not really grow against the gravity. So that month is kind of a preserving nature of life. So no cultivation is done in the month of Margari. So this festival is kind of a tribute to the mother, to the Eteyamma, with gratitude for all she had given the entire year. So the entire year she has blessed us with good monsoon, good food, good environment, good people, good health. So that month of Margari, people, they do vratam, they do vratam, intense meditation for one mandalam for 48 days, and they celebrate Eteyabba with full consciousness, as giving a tribute of thank you. And this Abba, it literally reminds us to follow the footsteps of Dharma path. So when every year these kind of festivals are celebrated, that the young generations would get to know our history, and they would never they would be exposed only to the positivity of their community. So this festival is a symbol of harmony where everybody gather together and celebrate together. It is a physical and psychological healing, of course. And one picture of the Teyaba, so you can see thousands and thousands of people gathered in the same place. So they all worship the god. They all eat food together, they all dance, they all celebrate. So no one knows each other, so the entire community comes in there, but still the brotherhood and the kinship is still maintained. And another important and interesting ritual is the Mapu. Mapu means promise. So this is thanksgiving to the nature. So I had already told ancestor and nature are our god. So thanksgiving to the ancestor is the Teba festival and the other stuff. And thanksgiving to the nature is the Mapu festival. So this festival or this ritual, it connects the 5 elements of nature and also the mankind. So Mapu means promise. So what do they promise? Who do they promise to? Their promise is made to Mother Earth. So on this day, the burning firewood pieces are brought by the Prohit or the Pusari of that village. So they would add some incense powder. The incense powder or the dhupam that we say is added on the firewood pieces so that the whole place would be in good aroma, and that pieces are kept on an auspicious stone alongside a natural water or spring or a small stream in an open space. So this itself says that the firewood pieces gives the indicates the fire element. The aroma or the smoke that comes out of the incense powder is the wind. The natural water, the spring, is the water. The open space is the akash, and they do it on an auspicious stone, and that denotes the earth. So it says like it's the thanks given to the 5 elements of the nature. And after the ritual, the ritual is dedicated to Mother Earth, and they promise that they do not do any earthly work for the next whole week. So this thing happens on one Monday. So until the next Monday, they do not do any work. So that means this is a rest period for the earth and the cattle. So even the cattle needs some rest and the soil needs some rest. So this shows how love and compassionate the Vargas were with the nature. And in this rest period, they don't say stay idle. The water bodies, the small ponds and lakes, the rivers, they all are purified and they are cleaned so that it could be used for the next thing. And next is how they understood the nature. So Badagas have a strong, close connection with the nature. Their proverbs, they say a lot of oral proverbs, and that proverb would say how insightful they were with the nature. So one thing is the Mungaro Akilo. Akilo means bird. Mungaro is rain. It is a rain bird. It looks like the woodpecker that we see on the first picture. So this particular bird doesn't come throughout the month, throughout the year. It comes only in particular times. So when there is a presence of this woodpecker, this bird, it means then the monsoon is on the way. It is the onset of the monsoon. So based on that, the ancient people, our ancestors, had known when it is the onset for the monsoon, and so that they get prepared for the next part of their agriculture. And next is the Sauna Kake. Kake means crow. It is a red crow, you can see in the picture. So this crow has a unique character. It brings the twigs and roots from all over the woods and make a special nest. Besides that nest are used for cleaning purpose and other things. Our ancestor would take a part of that nest and they would put it in the river, the flowing water. One particular route would be traveling on the opposite way of the river. So they had identified that route. That route is the Sanjeevani route, and nobody knows where this crow brings the route from. Are they really in the Western Ghats or in the Himalayas? But this way, this Sanjeevani route is a very important medicinal herb in Ayurveda. It cures many serious nervous disorders, and our our ancestors had this knowledge of finding this precious root out of that nest. That is really admirable. And while burning the nest of this crow, the smoke that comes out of the nest seemed to calm down a restless child, a child who's throwing tantrum. The next is the Kurinji. The Kurinji is a flowering plant that flowers once in 12 years. So though that is a natural thing, and Kurinji has nothing to do with the agriculture, but the growth of the Kurinji, or seeing the Kurinji blossoming, our ancestors had known that that is a time for drought. So though drought and Kurinji are not related, but they had got a point or got a note from around this time, they would be a chance of drought. So that our ancestors, they get prepared to overcome the drought until the drought season is done. So that is one a very commendable, admirable knowledge of them. And next is the rain and frost connection. So that is, Nilgiris is a hill station, a cold place. It has nice winter and also nice rain. So they, we can't, we can't say when it would be there would be winter. I mean, there would be snow, although there is no snowfall, but there would be frostings on the grasslands, and when it would rain. So the crops and their cultivation also depends upon the frosting and the rain. So based on that, they had got the knowledge that they say muchandeyo may ichandeyo honey. That means if it had rained the previous day, it would be frosting the next day, and if it had frosted the previous day, the next day would be raining. So this geographical knowledge of them is also very admirable thing. And let's see the nature god and how nature god is worshipped in every day of their life. So one, as I said, the tree and stone worship. So in every Varga village, there is something called the Suttukallu. Kallu means stone. A triangular shaped stone is kept, is placed under a tree, a sacred tree, in an open place in the village. So anybody can come and worship. So any spiritual ceremonies would happen around the stone and the tree. That tree would be mainly the Nerimora. Nerimora is the, we say the Naval Param, the Jamun tree, and Bikimora. Bikimora is, in Tamil they say Vikiparam, but I don't know what the botanical name of that. So the main reason they had kept the Nerimora and Bikimora is that apart from the medicinal uses and the power of the spiritual energy, the positive energy that we get from these trees. Apart from that, our ancestors, they wanted to preserve these trees for the next generations. So they were so nature conscious that they don't wanted these trees to go extinct. So they had planted it as a god, so that as already Vargas are very spiritually oriented, they would definitely preserve these trees. So how intelligently they had thought, and they had planted these trees. And sadly, the appearances of these trees in the hills has declined very drastically. That is one sad thing. The next is fire worship. So fire is Agni. So Agni, the sacred element of the nature, it keeps the negative energy away. It would take off all the negative energies. So that's why fire is used in several rituals. So the use of the dhupam or the incense powder, that dhupam is made from various medicinal plants that we get from the woods. So Bargas are basically agriculturists, so they have no knowledge about what woods are chosen to make the dhupam. So in that case, what they do, they get the dhupam in exchange of agricultural products from another tribe called the Kurumbas. So though they were different tribes, and different tribes have different culture and practices, they all lived in harmony together, and they served each other for different various purposes. So this is how peaceful our ancestors were, in harmony and united with other tribes. Whereas these days we don't even know who's on the in the next door and who's our neighbor. That's so sad. And light worship. So light, the first form of light source is the sun, the Hotu. So even today, when a person wakes up and he steps out of the house, he first worships the sun, and then bows down and touches the earth and worships the earth, and then he goes wherever he wants. So sun was an important form of worship among Bargas. So the women would wake up before the sunrise. They would sweep and clean the house and the patio, they sprinkle the cow dung water, the cow dung diluted in water, they would sprinkle all over the patio. So why do they do this? One thing is that they are welcoming the sun god every morning, and also no person is encouraged to sleep beyond the sunrise. That means our the body clock, our circadian cycle will be perfectly matched, perfectly followed. And the reason for the cow dung water is that cow dung is a germicide. It has a lot of antibacterial properties, so that would help any germs or bacteria to enter the house. And next is the lamp. They used other lamp sources like lamps like the earthen lamps, stone lamp, copper, or the brass lamp. So they had known the significance of fire, so they distributed the fire from the ancestor house to all the house. That means in the ancient days they had no matchsticks, as obviously, so they used a kind of stick. That stick is called Vonnemora in Barga. So they used that stick to create fire. So imagine when every house wanted to use that stick for fire. So then gradually the population or the amount of stick used would be a lot, so that it wouldn't come for a long days, right? So what they had did, the ancestor house for the Dodamane, where the great grandfathers lived, in that house people would light the fire, and the other villagers, they would get the fire from that house, and they would light their lamps in their own houses. So that way it is like we had first worship the ancestor and got the blessings from them, and that blessing we are lighting it down in our family. So that is their insight about that. So this says sharing and unity. No one says like, this stick is mine, I would not give you the fire. No, not like that. So this says the sharing and unity among them, and they wanted to preserve the special gift of nature, that is the Vonnemora, the fire stick, which can light fire. And they had no wicks those days, so instead of wick they used the Bombay hullu. Hullu is grass, so they used the lemongrass. Lemongrass was in abundant in the hills, so the dried lemongrass were used as the wick, and the lighting oil was ghee, because because any house they would have a cow and a bull, and they churn their own butter, and they would get their own freshly made cow ghee, and they used as the lighting oil. So this lighting of lamp with ghee as an oil, it has a lot of benefits in the light gazing and in light gazing meditation, that helps to invoke the biomagnetism and positivity in us. Next, the water worship. Water is always, according to Bargas, wasting water is a sin. So if I remember my mother who said to me one day that if you waste water, you won't have money in your hand. So I laughed at her. What do you mean by that? So because they were taught so that wasting water is a sin, and we won't have money in the hand, so we don't have food. That means wasting a lot of water would ultimately bring us in drought that we are having now. These days we are in water scarcity, so we won't be having food to eat. That they had already, our ancestors are I had realized that long back ago, where they were abundant of natural water, but still they wanted to preserve the nature's water, and they wanted to preserve that for the next generations, and they had taught everyone that wasting water is a sin and water is our god. So use water sensibly. And you can see in even till date, when a barga is passing a small spring or a river, he just don't cross it. He would stand there, he would give a small tribute to that water, he worships that water and takes that water and sprinkles on him, and takes a few sips of water and then cross it. So that is like we are respecting and worshipping the water and giving a tribute before we cross it. Next is their intellectual architecture. So in the first